Hello and welcome. My name is Cage and I am part of the marketing team at Macauley Publishers. Today we have the author Michael Gruenbaum joining us to talk about his new children's book, Tell Me About Beethoven, which was published March 31st, 2022. Michael was born in Prague, Czechoslovakia. He survived the Holocaust and wrote about his teenage life during World War II in a book titled Somewhere There Is Still a Sun. That book was published by Simon & Schuster and has sold around 80,000 copies and has been translated into 16 languages. Now, Tell Me About Beethoven takes a different route to his first book, as it showcases the dedicated life of Beethoven in the form of a conversation between a young boy, David, and his grandfather. This was written alongside his late wife, Thelma Gruenbaum, who, like Michael, was an established writer. Now, Michael, welcome. I want to say thank you for joining us today and being a part of this and talking to us. And
thank you very much.
To start off with, I'd love to know what led you and Thelma to writing a children's book, specifically one about Beethoven.
Well, this is a sort of an interesting story behind the story, because this story was written 50 years ago. When my wife and I had 3 small children, and we were trying to entertain them and educate them. And so we wrote half a dozen children's stories. That was, 50 years ago. And at that time, the world was observing the 200th anniversary of Beethoven's birth. So that was getting some notoriety. And Beethoven was always a big hero to me. I always admired him, and we'll go into that a little bit later, why I feel that way.
Oh, that sounds great. And has music always been something that has been important to both you and Thelma?
Well, Thelma had the privilege of, first of all, having a mother who was a piano teacher.
Oh, nice.
And so she also learned how to play the piano. I, unfortunately, wasn't able to learn anything during the Holocaust. In fact, just before we were sent to a concentration camp, my uncle was trying to teach me how to play the violin. And when the Germans decreed that all musical instruments had to be turned in under the threat of death, I was very happy because I couldn't stand the scratching on my hair with the violin.
You've never been tempted to start playing again?
No, never. The only thing I played a little bit was the harmonica.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
What do you think the life of Beethoven has to offer in this day and age?
Well, I think Beethoven, first of all, had a very strict father who made him practice and practice and practice. And, we don't have, in this country, we usually don't have that discipline. We like to have fun, and we like to play around and things like that. Whereas I know that my son, Leon, who is a musician, he always had to compete against Koreans and Chinese who have that discipline. The parents are really making them practice and practice and practice. So it's a different story. I think you really have to be focused. And that's the answer to it.
Yeah, there was so many things as I was reading it that I was surprised to learn about Beethoven, even though I feel like he is such a household name to so many people. I guess a lot of the things that we just hear are about music, as opposed to all the discipline that he had to go through. And I wonder, what would you think, or how do you think kids should find the balance between that, between having discipline in whatever craft they choose to pursue, but also being a kid and having fun and socializing?
Well, I find that you really, when you compete, you have to start very young. I mean, the Russians start teaching kids how to play chess when they're 2 years old. And over here in this country, you start swimming when you are 2 years old,
Yeah.
Those are the real champions, the ones that start way back and
Yeah.
children. So it's and when you do that, you have to put the fun aside. There's an illustration in the book about Beethoven playing piano and looking out the window, and there are three boys playing.
Yeah.
And he wistfully is looking out to them, but he knows he's got to practice.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging, I'm sure, to make that separation, but you see what he goes through in the story, and I guess it all becomes worth it because, he has fallen in love with his craft and finds a way to make it in a way that works for him. Yeah, and one thing I guess that surprised me was the dedication that he has. I know that even as an adult reading this children's book, I definitely felt inspired to stay dedicated to my craft. And that was very interesting, just being so inspired from the story, and how it looks to pursue your passion and life's calling, no matter what the obstacles are. And in your book, you mention how Beethoven loses his hearing when he's 28. And as I was reading that, I was thinking, oh, I'm 28. I can't imagine what life would be like to lose such an important sense and then just carry on with something like music. We listen to that,
Right.
Which is, yeah, it's definitely hard to go through those obstacles.
He had a lot of obstacles physically, and he had to contend with wars. I think he had to move from one city to another because of war. There was a lot of poverty in his family. I mean, that's how the father figured out that maybe he can get out of poverty by making Beethoven a child prodigy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did.
Right.
What was the message that you want for children to take away from the story when they read it?
Well, I got a message from a friend of mine who read the book, and she aptly said, what I got out of it was perseverance, do what you love, be true to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of captured the whole thing.
Nice. Well, that's exciting. Looking forward to reading that. I just want to thank you, Michael, for taking this time to talk to us a little bit about this and joining us here at the US Book Show. And thank you to everyone who is watching. We hope that you enjoy this book and look forward to future books by Michael. Tell Me About Beethoven is available online at all major retailers, as well as on the Awesome Macauley Publishers website. We also have a competition that you can enter within our booth where you can win a copy of Michael's book. So if you haven't already, make sure you go and check that out.
Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity.
Of course.